Good morning. It's a beautiful day. I hope your day is going well. I hope that um, as it looks like our culture is beginning to open up a little bit more, I heard yesterday that all 50 states have made some steps toward opening up and allowing people to come out under under certain circumstances. And I hope that that is bringing to you renewed joy, kind of maybe a light at the end of the tunnel kind of a thing. And I hope that that encourages you. I hope also that we as a country will have the discipline to do what is right um, because the virus is still around. I was looking recently at the flu of 1916 about there's a graph of two, actually three spikes that after people quarantined and did all the things that they did when it first started, as the new cases went down, they started to kind of take things for granted or believe that it was finished. And there was another spike as a result of that. And I hope that we're looking at things differently, and especially until we can realistically say that coronavirus, or at least COVID-19, is really something of the past, and is relegated to polio and things like that. But don't grow weary in well doing. And again, I encourage you, as I have before, to utilize these times to learn to look at life differently. I really think that when God disciplines us, that He's teaching us, and in fact, that's what our lesson is about this week. Is about discipline and self-discipline. It's about appreciating the no, and by no I mean N-O. We're going to talk about that, the use of the word no, and how it involves discipline, and especially self-discipline. But to lead off, I'm just going to come out and say it. Americans are getting weaker by the day. We've traded risk for the illusion of safety and security. We're not nurturing the leaders that we're going to need to pursue a definitive vision in uncertain times, but also in an uncertain future. We've lost the will to allow anyone to developmentally hurt. I'm going to talk about what that means. And if you're not willing to hurt, you become weaker. Part of our culture becoming more sensitive is that it becomes weaker. That's what weakness is greater sensitivity, whether it's to pain, adversity, or whatever. And I think in the last couple of decades, we've been sold sensitivity as a great thing. We want to be sensitive to one another. We want to be sensitivity training, those kinds of things. And there is truth in that. However, as you increase in sensitivity, what you increase is also the ability to be sensitive to everything. If you think of sensitivity to pain, adversity, then the greater my sensitivity, the easier it is for pain to overwhelm me, the easier it is for pain to defeat me in whatever it is my goal is. I don't proudly say that we as a nation are becoming weaker. In fact, to me, it sounds an alarm. But part of it has to do with the fact that we're unwilling to experience pain, and we certainly don't see any positive aspect of pain or hurt. And that's why I use the term developmental hurt. Developmental hurt is the pain that is a necessary part of developing strength and virtue. It's learning to go through the discipline in order to achieve the goal. Now, we've got some forms of that in our culture, but unfortunately, so many of the forms are not toward necessarily character. In fact, many of the examples of discipline or even self-discipline that we use in our culture are vapid. Now, understand, I think self-discipline is always a good thing. But I think it also needs to have an outcome or a purpose or a goal or an achievement that betters mankind. A good example of modern day discipline is sports. people who submit themselves to sports submit themselves to a very strenuous level of discipline. But it's for a game. And the game is an amusement, but it's not, it doesn't develop people. It doesn't make people better. And the sports figures that we see, it doesn't make them better as human beings. They're in the news every week for character failures that even though they've been disciplined in sports, they haven't been disciplined in virtue or character. So really, that is almost a misuse of discipline, if you will. It's discipline without a higher goal other than to amuse people. Military. Military is probably the greatest example of discipline taught and discipline learned. But in a way, in a form, military discipline is a waste of human discipline in order to waste humans. It's a great process, but the outcome is very destructive. Now, from a defense perspective, it's important. But overall, look at it from God's perspective. You've got nations at war with nations using discipline to get better at what they do to destroy people. Certainly that goes against his design and things like that. Discipline is the ability to say no and bear the pain that goes with denial for a greater cause. When my body's hurting, the staff sergeant will say, and I say, Sergeant, I want to stop. Sergeant, we've marched for 20 miles, got an 80-pound backpack, I'm hurting. Can we stop? The answer is no. No, you're not going to stop. You're going to keep going for a greater cause. And the greater cause, as we understand, is success on the battlefield, things like that. Now, self-discipline, and I think part of the reason for discipline is the development of self-discipline. Self-discipline is ultimately when I'm not receiving the no, I'm giving myself the no. By no, I mean the answer no to my desire, to my hope, to my whatever. I'm saying no. Now, understand in our culture, no's become a bad word. To tell anybody, no, you can't do that, or no, you won't do that. And when we don't say no, we don't learn how to tell ourselves no. So if discipline is passive, in other words, it's being done to me, I'm being disciplined. And that's the case between God and us. He disciplines us. We are disciplined. We don't discipline. He disciplines. We receive discipline. So our body is screaming to stop. My spirit is screaming to stop. Or my flesh is screaming to go. I want this. I desire this. I demand this, or whatever. And God disciplines us to say, no, you're not going to have that. I'm not going to give that to you. You're going to trust me and pursue me for a higher calling, a higher purpose. This is a form of self-denial for a greater good. Now, in the United States, we've lost any greater goods. There is no reason for self-denial. There is no reason for delayed gratification. And ultimately, when you boil down self-discipline and discipline, it comes to two words, or two concepts. One is no, and the other is delaying gratification. Delayed gratification means I'm going to put off a reward until I achieve my goal. And I understand so much of Christianity is just that. It's delayed gratification. We don't receive our reward until after our life's over. Now, we do receive some rewards in this life. We get enough feedback to let us know that this self-discipline thing and this pursuit of righteousness is a good thing. But ultimately, we understand that it's not till Judgment Day and thereafter. It's not until eternity in heaven that all this delayed gratification is rewarded. When my dad had his first heart attack, he was very frustrated. Obviously, he was frightened, but I remember he was in the hospital and was talking to the cardiologist about it because my mom and dad had always taken care of themselves. They had walked 5 miles a day. They ate nuts and twigs. My kids really didn't enjoy going to their house because there was no sugar, there was no salt. They had saltless Potato chips, if they ate them, there would be no Coke, anything like that. Um, and so my kids would always get us to take food, kinds of food we eat. That's a horrible confession, but so that they could enjoy being with grandmother and granddad without having to worry about eating, and a diet that they thought was punishment. And that's just the way my parents lived. So dad's had a heart attack and he's frustrated. I've tried to do everything right. And I remember dad saying to the cardiologist, I think back on all the times I pushed away a saucer of cake or dessert, or the times I would get out of bed or out of my recliner and think, I really don't feel like walking 5 miles today, but I'm going to do it anyway. And what's it for? What was it all for? Because he was 75, I think, when he had his first heart attack. And I'll never forget what the cardiologist said. He said, Mr. Parker, you did the right things. What you did pushing the pie away was good. What you did getting out of your recliner and walking was good. And um, not only did it help you to achieve, because your father died when he was 65, and here you are 75 and you're having a heart attack, or you've had a heart attack. And he said, but I'm going to tell you where the payoff's going to be. He said, number one, you're the first patient I've ever had that I couldn't put on a diet after a heart attack, because you're already on it. You're the first person I can't put on a health and exercise regime, because you're already on it. And where this is going to pay off is in your recovery. You're going to have a faster, bolder recovery than probably anybody I've seen, just because you've been doing the right thing. So even when my father had kind of lost faith in, why did I do all this? I delayed gratification so that I could live longer. And the cardiologist was reinforcing the fact, yes, and you're going to live longer and you're going to live better as a cardiac patient because of all the discipline and self-discipline that you practice. So discipline is the voice on the outside saying no, or we're going to put this reward off. You're going to get that later. As my dad used to say, make sure the hay's in the barn before you celebrate the harvest. Self-discipline is the active voice on the self. Remember, discipline is the passive voice. That's it. That's no from someone else. And the challenge with no from someone else is, are we going to learn self-discipline through this process? In other words, I can chafe under discipline. I can chafe under hearing no. I can chafe if I believe that my gratification is being delayed unduly. And so when I get away from the source of discipline, I can rebel. And we see that so much. Now, what's happened in that case is I've been disciplined, but through my discipline, I've never been taught self-discipline. Now, son, one day you're going to have to make these choices. One day you're going to have to decide, because mom and dad aren't going to be here. And you're going to have to decide whether you say yes or whether you say no. Then you need to choose your choices wisely. And here's why we're delaying gratification. Here's why I'm telling you no. As we're younger, no is just no. As we get older, junior high and high school, here's the reason for it. Here's what I want you to understand. And one of these days, you're going to have the ability to do this. And then you need to decide whether you're going to say yes to yourself or no to yourself. But son, what I want you to know, it is so important, is why you say yes or no. That's training in self-discipline. So it's a transition from an external locus of control to an internal locus of control, specifically the Holy Spirit, because this self-discipline is part of the fruit of the Holy Spirit. So the answer no is developmental. May I have this? No. Can I do this? No. Can I go here? No. Okay. Yes is a reward. It's immediate. Can I go here? Yes. All right, that's a reward. It's viewed as a reward. Got my way, received, got a blessing, whatever. But yes is only good once character has been demonstrated. When I was growing up, when I was young, when Saturday was no school, Sunday was church most of the day. Saturday was our day to play. But I had chores. Chores was part of the discipline my father presented to me in hopes of helping me learn self-discipline. Some days the list of chores I had on Saturday would run to 2 and 3 in the afternoon. And Um, I would be so frustrated at times, especially when I was younger, because my friends are out playing. They didn't have chores. They were at the sandlot long before I was playing baseball or whatever. And I would complain to my dad, and I would, none of my friends this or that. And he would, I'm not your friend's father. I'm raising you, et cetera, et cetera. And through the years, he would begin to try to train me in why he was doing those things, the importance of chores and all of that kind of stuff. And I understand there was a part of me that viewed it as I'm taking care of his house, I'm taking care of his car. There was that sense of not ownership. I'm not helping us, and specifically me. I'm just serving you. Not that even that's bad. Um, but Dad would come and he would say, "All right, your chores are done. You can go play." That was the yes. I finally got the yes, and that was the reward. But it was a reward based on good character, and I cannot tell you now, and through my whole adulthood, how much I appreciate that because of the work ethic that it taught me. Not just a work ethic that there are chores to do, but you get your chores done before you party. You get your chores done before you relax. You make sure that the hay is up in the loft before you celebrate the harvest. And that has helped me in my career. That's helped me in my development. That's helped me in getting an undergraduate degree and two master's degrees because I learned the self-discipline. See, nobody told me I needed to have those degrees. Nobody said you got to do this. That was part of my own development that I had learned through my dad saying, no, you can't go play. No brings pain, but it also brings resolve. But here's the challenge. We don't look for opportunities to say no. It seems cruel to us. No seems to be punishment. And I'm going to talk in a minute about the difference between punishment and discipline, but no is certainly not punishment. Now, it can be, but not if it's a form of teaching discipline, but more importantly, training kids in how to do self-discipline. When God disciplines, he says no. In other words, I will not give you what you ask. Now, honestly, when he does that to us, don't we tend to view it as punishment rather than discipline? And by the way, when he's saying, I will not give you what you ask, I am saying no toward a higher call. Problem is, we don't see what the higher call is. When my dad was disciplining me with chores, I didn't see a higher calling. I wasn't thinking about work ethic. I was just thinking about avoiding work. He was developing in me something that I've been grateful to him for the rest of my life because of what it's done for me, my family, et cetera, and when I see that in my children. When Jesus said, please let this cup pass from me, God said, no, I have a higher call. Now, Jesus knew what his higher call is. So God says, no, I'm not going to give you what you ask because I'm teaching you self-discipline. I'm disciplining you toward a higher character. And sometimes he says no just to develop our character. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Or I will allow to take place what you have asked not to take place because there is a higher call here. Guys, we don't know what his vision is. We'll never have his vision. That's where our faith and trust is so important. But let me talk about discipline and punishment. We discipline our children to model self-discipline. Hopefully we model to our children self-discipline. They see us saying no to ourselves. They see us saying no to things that we personally desire, things even mom and dad desire, in order for the ultimate good of the family. And when they see that, when they see us practicing self-discipline, and when we teach them the importance of self-discipline, son, you're going to have to be making these decisions one of these days. And it's important for your family. It's important for your future that you make good ones, that you understand and you can define to yourself, why am I choosing this? Why am I doing this? What's the goal here? What's the higher calling? And at very least, is this and will this develop character in me? If I push away this plate of pie, will it develop character in me? Even if there's no other reason to push it away and I want the pie. I think we all understand, yes, it will. Because if I can learn to push the pie away, I can learn to push other things away that I don't need. Things that will be, even though they may taste good, they could ultimately harm me. When children see, when we train them in discipline, son, here's why I'm doing this. Here's what I want you to learn. Daughter, here's what I'm trying to model to you. What we're trying to do is get them to interpret our discipline as discipline training, not punishment. Punishment's just making somebody hurt. Discipline is hurting for a reason, hurting for a higher call, a higher ethic, hurting for character, hurting for discipline, hurting for self-discipline. It's learning that through the pain I can achieve anything, and that I will endure the pain. I will overcome the pain. I will endure the challenge. I will overcome the challenge, because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He has that promise, but I have learned that through being disciplined by him and also through practicing self-discipline. It's overt training in discipline. And guys, I think one of the ways we fail as parents is we're not overt about it often enough. We discipline them and we understand what we're doing, but we don't train them what we're doing. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing. And that's where it's good. Why am I doing this? Why am I saying no? Or maybe even more importantly, why am I saying yes? So often parents say yes and lose a training, self-discipline training opportunity just because they want to be their child's friend. Guys, have you realized how God puts his relationship with us on the line through disciplining us? God calls it training in righteousness. How many people have left God? How many people have abandoned a relationship with him because he disciplined them? The Hebrew writer wrote about that in Hebrews 12. And he used some strong words. Let's look at that passage. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Now there's the goal. We're going to lay aside everything that encumbers us, ties us down, tries to control us, etc. We're going to get rid of the sin that so easily entangles us, and we're going to run with endurance. There's the discipline. There's the self-discipline. The race that is set before us. All right, we got a job to do. We got a mission to fulfill. And we're going to do that. How? First of all, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand on the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. You've not yet resisted to the point of shedding blood in your striving against sin. So he uses the example of Jesus. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get these entanglements rid of. We're going to get sin gone. We're going to learn to endure this course that we're running. And life is a race. It's a race course, okay, beginning to end. Now, look at Jesus. He did the same thing. Or have you forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son he receives. God's not afraid of hurting us. Isn't that weird? Is that weird to hear me say? God's not afraid of hurting us. He scourges every son that he receives. Whips. A scourge is a whip. It's actually a more brutal form of a whip. Just take it as a whip. He whips his sons and daughters. It is for discipline that you endure. Endure. God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you're without discipline, all of which who have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. We don't discipline other people's kids. Honestly, we don't care enough about their character development. Oh, we'll help. I mean, we'll encourage and things like that, but we don't take them under our arms and discipline them and train them and do all of these kinds of things. They're not our legitimate children. Furthermore, we have earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, 15, 16, 18 years. It seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. There's your higher calling. There's your higher goal. That's what everything is oriented toward. That's what he says yes toward. That's what he says no toward. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Let me stop here. How many people have left God because of the sorrow of discipline? How many have left God because he said no? How many have left God because they would not accept the delayed gratification of no? I'm going to have this euphoric experience with drugs now. I'm going to have this sexual experience now. I'm going to have this relationship that I shouldn't have now. I'm going to be involved. I'm going to steal this money or this candy bar from the 7-Eleven now because I want it now. I haven't saved money for it, haven't disciplined myself to be able to purchase it and feel proud of that. I'm going to take it now. How many folks have abandoned God because of the sorrow of no of discipline? Therefore, strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble, and make straight paths for your feet, so that the limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. I started out saying in this lesson, we're getting weak. There's where it came from. Therefore, strengthen the hands that are weak and the knees that are feeble. We have weak hands and knees that are feeble in the United States. We're weak, and we don't even realize it. We don't see a reason to say no to anybody else, say no to ourselves. And guys, that's where we are in this coronavirus. And I want to talk about that in a moment. Make straight paths for your feet, so the limb that is lame may not be broken. Now, we're weak as a nation, and we're headed to broken limbs. We're headed to a broken body on the side of the road as a nation if we don't change. How do you do that? Through accepting the discipline of God and learning self-discipline, which is painful, which is sorrowful, which says no. We're in the midst of a coronavirus, and we will not say hurt to ourselves. We will not say, all right, guys, it's time to suck it up because we're about to hurt. We're about to go into hurt. See, those that we vote for know you can't run on that kind of a platform unless people accept it. If we turn to our leaders and say, all right, this is time for us to really tighten up. Let's do it together. Let's make it through this together. And I don't mean just quarantine. Let's financially tighten up. Discipline is not about being bad. Discipline has gotten a bad reputation as being the answer to bad behavior. Does it involve the correction of bad or negative behavior? Absolutely. But is it development of good when there is no bad? Absolutely. Discipline is ongoing. It is reinforcing good behavior. It is training good behavior. It's not just a negative response to a negative behavior. Discipline is not a negative process, not sorrowful. But the outcome is the healing. The outcome is the endurance. The outcome is the victory and the achievement, etc. Discipline is used only to remedy will not be effective, especially in developing self-discipline. Proactive discipline that involves all times, not just a remedy to something that is bad, teaches self-discipline. No is a great word. It's so powerful that every 2-year-old uses it as his first word of self-assertion. No. It's a powerful word. It's a beautiful word used in the context of discipline toward learning self-discipline, which is endurance to win the race. We've got too many brothers and sisters who are on the sidelines of the race because they never learned discipline, or certainly self-discipline. Now here's another way we become weak. Well, I don't want to see my child sad. I don't want to see my child cry. All right. God scourges his children. He's not only willing to watch us cry, he makes us cry. Not in order to make us cry, but to develop us. So many of us are trying to soothe the hurts of our past in the way that we do with our kids. Well, I didn't get a pony when I was a child. Why didn't you get a pony? If pony's what you wanted, why didn't you get one? It's because the family couldn't afford it? Is it because you were didn't demonstrate the ability to take care of an animal? On and on and on. Deal with your issues. Deal with your past pain. But understand you're not bruised because you didn't get a pony. Now, you may have pain that you're harboring, but you weren't bruised. See your child's cry as developmental. Put it in the context of he's not just crying. He's crying for a greater cause, and it's worth it. He's developing endurance. She's developing strong hands and knees. She's developing character. And the purpose in us saying no was character development toward the goal of her self-disciplined character development. They're developing. Crying is part of development. First thing a child does outside of the womb is cry to develop lungs, to show us I'm alive, to fight, to live. Crying is not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. They're learning what behaviors go with painful outcomes. Jeff Foxworthy talked about that his dad had as he called it, a 500-pound console TV on a tray table. And he warned the kids, don't mess around the TV. And Jeff Foxworthy messed around the TV and it all fell on him. And his dad's answer was, hurt a lot, didn't it? You see, what his father was understanding is, I've warned you this, now you've learned the consequences of it. That pain, although unnecessary, that pain is now part of your development. Put our hands on the stove. Ooh, learn. Learn. Ooh, that hurt. Ooh, that hurt. Ooh, that hurt. That's just rebellion. I'm going to hurt myself to prove a point or whatever. Learn. Does God make his children cry with discipline? Yes. Is it merely to make his children cry? No. But he understands crying has a part. Sadness has a part. Pouting has a part. Being in my room and I won't talk to you has a part. It's all right that you won't talk to me right now because I'm developing character in you. And one of these days, you will rise up and call me blessed for doing this. One of these days, we will rise up and call God blessed for disciplining us and caring enough about it to develop our character. A proactive no. Is this a learning opportunity? And will no develop character better than yes? Remember, yes is a reinforcement of positive character demonstrated. It's a reward because it's immediate. And immediate doesn't develop character, but it can reward character. So here we are with the coronavirus, where we help Daddy. Have you guys ever heard of Save for a Rainy Day? The idea that when there's a bountiful harvest, lay by and store because, now don't build barns on top of barns, etc., but lay by and store because it's not always going to be a bountiful harvest. I mean, isn't that what Joseph taught Pharaoh? Isn't that what he taught Egypt? Isn't that what he taught us? You're going to have 7 years. You better take advantage of it because you're going to be followed by... That's the way the world works. That's the yin and yang of life. It is not always prosperity on top of prosperity. But we have learned as a nation that we can depend on that. That prosperity is just going to build on top of prosperity. And there can come times of that, 7 years, a decade of that. But it's going to be followed with the mill will close. The ranch house will burn. The crops will fail. And if we're not prepared for that, look where we are. How many folks in the United States have at least 6 months of income set aside to be able to cover in tough times? How many corporations have 6 months or a year of money set aside, not to be given to those who hold stock, but to be laid aside in case the mill burns, in case we have to shut down, so that we can continue to take care of our workers who are our bread and butter of getting this stuff done? Where did this idea of saving for a rainy day, where did it get thrown aside? So here we are, government, Dad, you got to save us of our bad financial planning, and you've got to stimulate us. You've got to take care of us. You've got to make sure that we succeed, even though we have made bad choices, even though we have made bad economic choices as individuals, as a nation, as corporations, etc. The only way we can survive is to dig ourselves into greater debt. And any economist will tell you, you cannot get yourself out of debt by greater debt. It's the old adage, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Well, Steve, it's awful cruel to tell us this when we're in the midst of it. You see, we don't listen in the good times. In the good times, we believe, oh, someone comes along and says, hey, you know, the stock market's going to fall one of these days. If something's going to happen, and there were warnings passed around, there's going to be a virus break loose, there's going to be a pandemic. There always are. It won't happen to us. We're depending on science just as we are right now. It's learn. It's ouch. Learn. Depression. Ouch. Learn. Great Recession. Ouch. Learn. World War I, ouch, learn. World War II, ouch, learn. But we don't learn. We're not developing discipline. We're not developing self-discipline. Our hands and feet, which are hurting, are weak, are going to get broken. Now, I'm not a prophet or a son of a prophet. That comes from God. We as a nation need to make some big changes. But I want my children to have more. More what? Why is the assumption material? Yeah, when I was a kid, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. What did you have? Did you have parents that raised you in character and love? If so, you had everything. But I didn't have a pony. You didn't need a pony. Probably you developed more character by receiving no to a pony request. Do we want more for them in terms of stuff from the book of Ecclesiastes, stuff that is a chasing after the wind? Do we want more for them of stuff that's going to burn up in the end when everything burns up? Do we want more for them? What God said through Solomon is emptiness, vanity, a chasing after the wind. Or do we want more for them? Greater character that builds their life now and lasts for eternity. What is it? I want your kids to have more. But more what? I want your kids to have more integrity, more character, greater self-discipline. Because when they have that, it will serve them through life, and they can achieve anything in the name of God. Guys, I got to admit to you, I'm having trouble with my exercise program. All right, I have to admit to you, I don't have an exercise program. That's my problem. You see, I know I can bear the pain and develop my body. I know I can go out and run 3 to 5 miles a day, and I'd be in better shape than I am. But I also know I can enjoy the recliner. I can come home from work, tired, spent, and boy, that recliner looks good, and, you know, grab the remote, and it's just easy. The truth is, I don't have a compelling reason. Now, I've got knowledge. I know that it's good for me. I know that I need to do it, but I don't have a compelling reason to bring the pain because it hurts. Now, what's interesting, even in what I've told you, if I had a heart attack and lived, I would have a compelling reason. Now, the question is, do I have the discipline enough? Do I have the self-discipline enough to know my dad was a cardiac patient, my grandpa was a cardiac patient, so I'm a cardiac patient? Do I have the self-discipline to say, I know it's best for me? I'm not going to wait till I have a heart attack. I'm not going to wait till I get burned. I'm going to learn from my dad getting burned, my grandpa getting burned. am I going to do what is right? I know it's essential for good health. Will I wait until I have a compelling reason? How many people do? How many people wait till they have the heart attack to go to the mall and start walking and all that kind of stuff? That's where we are as a culture. I have an exercise program problem. I can relate to the human experience. But I also know in my heart of hearts, I also, to be honest with you, carry a certain level of guilt about that because I am not demonstrating the character to take care of it for a greater cause. It's not just no to the sofa, to the recliner, to say no. It is no to this and yes to that. It's seeing the recliner as a deathbed if I don't take care of myself first. Remember, laying the hay up in the loft is getting out on that track and running, going to the gym, whatever it is. And then the recliner is a yes. Then it is a reward, if you will. It's understanding what has value, what has greater value. We don't trade gold for that which glitters. Character always says no to the lesser in order to achieve the greater. God said no to Jesus at the cross for a greater cause. And what greater cause is there than saving your own child? It's saving your own children. It's possible to overdo discipline. Or let me put that as a question. Is it possible to overdo discipline? Or is it a matter of becoming unbalanced in discipline? See, even soldiers get shore leave. Does God ever stop disciplining us? I understand it's not without rewards, again, shore leave and things like that. But can discipline be overdone or can it become unbalanced? Too much, no, without enough. You did good, here's the yes. You guys served well, here's the shore leave. As my dad always said, and I repeat it here, make sure the hay's in the loft before you celebrate the harvest. Then you can enjoy the celebration and you don't feel guilty. You don't have to worry, is the hay going to get wet while I'm here partying? Finally, a challenge to us about what I perceive as competitive child rearing. I long for a day when we as the church can get together and see ourselves as a village that raises kids. I long for the day when we take advantage of the tremendous trust of wisdom, experience, and knowledge that we have in the congregation, of people who've experienced everything and learned all kinds of stuff, and they're living godly lives, and they're successful, and they could help us teach our children so much. What we as a family could accomplish if we had agreed upon what we agree upon when it comes to rearing our children. That if we reviewed each other as resources rather than competitive judges. Even in the church, we raise our children competitively. That I want my kids to be, I don't want anybody else to look down on my kids, I don't want anybody to judge my kids, etc., rather than the folks at church, especially the older folks, are a tremendous library of resources for my children. I wish there were a way that we could sit down and say, all right, here's the stuff that we agree on. If a child is doing this, I want you to step in, and I want you to correct my child, and I want you to let me know what took place. We never sit down and define those things. And obviously there can be areas that we don't agree on, and that's fine. We can agree and disagree on those, and we won't step in on those. But what a great resource that we have. I've told you before, I've been whipped by more deacons because my parents, when I was growing up, and I'll never forget Pasadena, Texas, Shaw Street Church of Christ. My dad was talking to everybody because after church, adults sit around and talk for forever, and kids are kids. My dad said, if you ever see my kid doing anything, you deal with it, and then you let me know. And so I've been spanked by deacons. My dad deputized them to do that. You have, if he doesn't respond to the words you say, you have put him over your knee and spank him. Okay. Now I'm not saying we would agree to that, but I'm just using that as an illustration that I was disciplined by a lot of different people. There was a trust there. There was a posse to help this kid grow up and to be in the right way. If there were, and my dad would come to me and say, I understand so and so talked to you. I understand so and so had to deal with you. Yes. What did he do? How did he stay? And if I felt that he had been unfair, then I could share that to my dad, and my dad would go back and talk to that person. But it was an amazing thing, and I was always had to be on watch because I was always being watched. These folks weren't going to let me get away with anything. God bless them for that. It takes a village in that way. A place not to let my kids run wild, but for an extended family to raise our kids together as families do. I wish we could learn to get together and become a family raising our kids. God bless you today. God bless you this week. God bless you as the day approaches when we can all see one another face to face. That we can look in each other's eyes, even if we can't shake hands and hug. We can just be there, see each other, and smile. I've learned that even if you smile from behind a mask, there's a twinkle in the eyes that lets you know there's a smile under there. God bless you. Love you. Can't wait to see you. Have a great week.